Swinging a ground ball, stabbed by Folk. He has it. He underhands to first, and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions for the first time in 86 years.
Together they have, and together they stand alone on top of the mountain for now. And once again, the Boston Celtics stand alone for all time. It is banner 18.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
And a title for the Patriots!
I can't believe it!
They have completed the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome into episode 63 of a New Era podcast. My name is Hanson, better known as Fryddy Online, and I am joined here by my dad and co-host, the OG Frid. Dad, would you like to say hello to the listeners this morning?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, listeners. Good morning, Fryddy. It's that time. It's almost like Christmas for us.
I know, I was about to say, you sound like tired or something. You don't sound too interested, too hyped.
Oh no,
as to what's going on.
Oh no, I'm trying to
Contain your excitement.
Contain the excitement that it is Christmas almost every single day, starting Thursday. Well, actually starting Tuesday and Wednesday, but
you only get like 2 games.
Yeah. And I recall a year ago, this wonderful state of North Carolina decided that we could bet. And they've been some incredible figures about tax revenues that have come into the state. And that I heard that majority of the individuals betting in the state have been losers.
That was me. It was me. Be excited to pull up those tax forms when I do my taxes soon. That'll be fun.
And yeah, I mean, now I've gotten away from the big sports betting. I've taken my winnings and I've put it back in. Although I shouldn't say I probably am overall winner, but I love Fliff, and I really can't wait to utilize that. Now, I know I can only do 12 a day, but I got a feeling...
You're going to make a 12-leg parlay every single day for round of 64, round of 32.
Yeah. Yep. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. No, I'll actually be gambling on it, but we're not hitting all the underdogs and all the crazy shit that you'll be doing. I've yet to even really look at all of these lines. When you were going through the ESPN Tournament Challenge app, when it unlocked at 7 p.m. yesterday, they had the ESPN lines, and I kind of glanced over them. So I'm not too I don't know the word I'm looking for already. Comfortable, I guess, with the lines, and they're gonna move. They're gonna move all week. Because those are just the opening lines, and then the money's going to start falling in here soon. Probably, if not today, definitely tomorrow, as people start watching the first 4 games and start itching for the ones that actually matter. But with that being said, like we did last year, this is cool because now it's second year around doing all this shit, Dad, and it's our second annual thing. This year, again, we're going to be making a bracket here today. As you know, probably every other sports podcast in the world is doing this week. But this is fun. We're going to do one together like we did, go through all these games, try to have as close to a consensus bracket that we can make. And then with the remaining time, we've got some NFL Patriots free agency to talk about, as they absolutely knocked it out the park last week, addressing some needs. We'll potentially wrap up talking through our top 10 linemen for the 2025 NFL draft, and then if we've got any time at the end, we'll kind of figure it out then. So the big plan today is March Madness, a bracket, and I think it's time we started off, aren't Dad?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so starting off in the South with the number 1 overall seed. Duke got robbed with this one, I'll tell you, but I think it's fine. I'm happier that they didn't get the number 1 overall here because they do get to play in Raleigh. But our actual number 1 overall is Auburn, and they'll be playing. I actually don't know who's in there. Is it like Alcorn State, I think, or something? Alabama State. I don't even know who the 16 seeds are. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Auburn, on a scale of like 1 to 10 of how confident you are in a 1 seed not losing to a 16. Usually you're very confident, but this one specifically, and most likely all of the 1 seeds this year, should fly through these, probably clearing all these games by 20, 25 points.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting that, I just pulled it up on the ESPN bracket, but this morning they did have the actual when you choose. It's weird. I guess when you go into create a bracket, it must be in there.
No, they just don't do it for the playing games, but I have it. It's Alabama State. It's St. Francis, who we've seen before in the tournament. I think last year, 2 years ago. They are the first four game. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, game 1 at 6:40. As well as then Carolina and San Diego State. I got a whole thing to say about that. That is also tomorrow, 9:10. Then on Wednesday, we've got Mount St. Mary's American, who end up playing Duke. And then ends off Wednesday night, 9:10, Xavier, Texas, which is the 11 seed in a different region that we'll get to later. So yeah, we're gonna move on Auburn, as is everybody. Let's not go too deep into that. And then our first 8-9 matchup, and I think the first game of the tournament. I didn't look. I believe it is.
12-15?
Which is funny because I saw this last night, and obviously, like, they tell you the days, but they don't release the times, I think, until today. I saw this matchup on the bracket, and I was like, I'll be damned if this isn't the first game that they put up Thursday, because it's always an 8-9, and you look through all the 8-9 games, and you're like, which one would it be? I thought potentially Mississippi State Baylor, but then they end up playing Friday as well in the East with Duke. So yeah, Louisville Creighton, our 8-9 seed game here, the first game of the tournament. And in the first one we really got to talk about here, Dad, which side are you leaning with the number 8 Louisville Cardinals and the number 9 Creighton Blue Jays?
I mean, obviously, two great, programs going, and both teams actually, had runs in respective tournaments. I think a lot of people were saying Creighton could get into the Big East if St. John's wasn't such a powerhouse, but Louisville making the run to the final, I'm going to lean towards them.
Yeah,
in a tight game.
I definitely think it's going to be tight. This is going to be a good one. I mean, looking at the spreads here, Louisville did open up at -1.5. It's sitting at -2.5 right now. 145 on the money line for Louisville, plus 125 for Creighton. I tend to agree with you here. I think Louisville got kind of shafted here at the 8th seed. Now, granted, the ACC has not been strong at all this year, but they did make a run to the final, and if they would have taken down Duke, obviously, I think you see them probably as a 5 here or something. 5 or definitely a 6, but maybe a 5. But then also you don't know, because if they didn't give them this much credit and gave them an 8 seed, would the committee have really considered it a big win with no Cooper Flag for Duke to put them up to a 5 seed? All in all, I think this is one of the better 8 seeds. I think they got a shitty lie, but I don't think Creighton's going to be happy to see them. Did play a decent game on Saturday. Duke just did what Duke does this year, and they pulled out at the end. You've got an injury, Smith, for Louisville, that is on the fence about coming back. He might return for Thursday's game, and if he does, Louisville's got a chance to get back to their full health and full speed. But 18-2 in conference for Louisville, like I said, in a bad ACC. And the cherry on top for me, this game is being played in Lexington. Very big home crowd for Louisville here, most likely in the first game of the tournament. And I'm going to take them to win this first round matchup as well. Moving down, number 5, Michigan versus number 12, UC San Diego. I got to tell you, some of these 5-12, 4-13, 6-11 matchups, very, very intriguing. And this one specifically caught my eye right out the gate. We're looking at an opening line of Michigan minus 3.5. It has already moved down to Michigan minus 2.5. They are minus 145 on the money line. This will be getting played in Denver, Colorado at, 10 o'clock on Thursday. Dad, do we see our first upset? Do we pick our first upset here already? Let me hear your thoughts on it.
No, I mean, obviously, Michigan, I got a good feeling about them going in this. I like the fact that they have this first-year coach that just seems to bring the team together. Obviously, a marked improvement over the year before, which I think they did not play to expectations. But I don't have them losing. I've been a big fan of Michigan all year long, so I don't think it's a upset yet.
Well, this might be where we differ here already. I could see Michigan. I feel like a lot of people, just like I was saying there, it's probably the first game you're picking and the first like upset game potentially that you're picking that's catching your eye. I kind of like UC San Diego here. This is their first ever NCAA tournament appearance in their first year of eligibility, so it's a good story for them. But like ESPN saying, they won't just be happy to be here. They got to win. They want to win this game too. They're phenomenal in the turnover battle. The only team in the top 10 in turnover percentage on offense and defense. I think that's a big thing to consider in the tournament. Obviously it's going to come down to who can be more efficient offensively and stuff like that. But if you get a close game with a close spread like this, I like the team that I think I can rely on to win the turnover battle, as well as probably the free throw battle. I'm not too sure the free throw numbers on both of these teams, but I think this could be close enough to give it to the Tritons. I did end up watching right before Selection Sunday yesterday, watched the end of the Big Ten Championship. Yes, Michigan did end up winning that one. But I don't know, something in me is telling me that this one's going to be close. I like San Diego. You like Michigan. Do we flip a coin for it?
I think we have to flip a coin.
I feel like we might have a couple games that we're going to have to flip a coin here in the first round. All right. Well, we'll go heads for Michigan, tails for San Diego.
Higher
just
seed,
like that.
heads, yeah.
Yeah, and here's our flip. Let's see what we get. It is going to be tails.
Oh.
San Diego will be moving on here. And
All
I'll
right,
keep this.
all
I'll keep this page up here because we'll have to use this again. So our first upset of the tournament there at 10 o'clock on Thursday night. We'll move down here to Texas A&M and Yale, the 4-13 matchup in the South. Another one here that I like an upset potentially. There's a lot of them.
I was leaning towards when I said not my first upset yet. This in my bracket, I got Yale.
I do too. I have Yale and San Diego facing each other in the second round after winning these first two games, and I think this is going to be a popular upset pick here. If we just go back to last year and we remember in that 5-12 matchup, Auburn versus Yale, and some people wanted to pick Yale, but it seemed like the overwhelming majority were still on Auburn to pull out that one, and they ended up losing that game. Yale did end up moving on in a very tight one, very closely contested on the rebounds and everything too, that ended up winning them that game, and I think this team is still going to be able to dominate the boards this year. And I'm not a full believer in Texas A&M.
No, either am I. No.
I'm really not. I think they're going to have some miscues. While yes, this team did play in the SEC, they won 11-7. It was a tough SEC year. I like Yale here. I don't know. I feel like Texas A&M is going to shit the bed. I feel like they're a little too high as a 4 seed. And something in this game is just telling me it's going to come down to the end, and we're going to have a Texas A&M turnover that leads into Yale having the ball, getting fouled, going into the free throw line, and putting this game away, probably 71-68 or something. You even look at the line from a 413 standpoint, you'd think this would be a little higher. You have Texas A&M opening at -7.5. They're still at -7.5 right now. I think that line tells you it's probably closer than some people think it's going to be. And yeah, I like Yale here.
Absolutely. And, obviously opening up a line out of the first bunch of lines we've had, that's the highest that we've seen at this point. I just think that Texas is going to be too tight. Yale's just going to be free. But again, Yale just went on to their Ivy League championship as well, played there. They're going to be loose, but yet a well-constructed team in this game. Not take, stupid shots, stupid fouls. They're going to be a just a well-disciplined game, and because of their smarts, I guess.
Yeah, they're going to play smart basketball because they're smart school.
They're smart school.
All right, moving on here to our first 6-11 matchup. We've got Ole Miss versus the winner of San Diego State versus UNC. As everybody's talking about, the committee made a big mistake. Committee fucked up here, big time, letting Carolina into the tournament over the likes of West Virginia or Indiana that probably deserved this 11 seed a little more. Because let's not forget, UNC is 1-12 in quad 1 games this year. On anybody's resume, that should not get them in. But what's terrible about it, and as much as I wanted them to miss this tournament, I can tell you right now, they are winning tomorrow night. They are going to beat San Diego State. Yeah. They are winning the play-in game. And they're going to give Ole Miss a scare. And I hate it. But I think we have to go the 11 seed here. Because I just know how these Carolina Tar Heels are going to play. They got their chance. They got an extra life here on a season that they shouldn't be in the tournament. And they are not going to take this for granted. Ole Miss, same thing I was saying about Texas A&M. Just not really moving me here. I know the SEC was tough. They had 14 teams that made the tournament this year, an NCAA record. But Ole Miss really doesn't scare me. I think Carolina having a win tomorrow against San Diego, they're going to be able to use that to propel them towards a win in the first round as well. I don't think we see Ole Miss getting out here.
Yeah, I agree. And potentially this could be another run like State had last year, getting that extra. I mean, Herb Davis is going to, get the guys playing well. I mean, they had a nice, potential comeback win against Duke the other night. But, if they don't make the stupid mistakes that they can, that they have been doing, I'll push them through this one, but don't see them much longer in this tournament.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to who they would end up seeing in the second round, we've got the number 3 seed Iowa State versus number 14 Lipscomb. Iowa State here, one of my favorite teams in the tournament, one of my favorite 3 seeds, I will say. This one, I don't have much to say about Lipscomb. There are some 3-14 matchups that I would give some thought here, but you're looking at an Iowa State team that I think takes this one pretty easily. -13.5 is the opening spread, still -13.5, -1,400 on the money line. You look at those numbers and you know how crazy March Madness is, and it wouldn't surprise me if the -1,400 favorite in Iowa State was the one that ends up losing, because that would just make so much sense in March Madness. But I just don't see this team dropping this one. I see them potentially making a decent run here in the South, especially even though they are having an injury now to Keyshawn Gilbert that was just ruled out for the season. They will be returning Lipsy, who missed the Big 12 tournament quarterfinal, and he's expected to play in the first round. So they're losing somebody, getting somebody back though, and I think they walk through this one.
Yeah. I don't think we have to talk too much about this one. I have Iowa State, and actually in my bracket, I've already done this morning. Again, like you, deep run.
Yep. All right, here, last two games of the South. We've got the 7-10 matchup, Marquette and New Mexico. I have a feeling we might have to go to flip a coin for this one, too. This, as close to what I think should be an 8-9 matchup as a 7-10 is, I like Marquette. I like New Mexico. This game is going to be great. And it's going to be a crazy game in terms of contrasting styles. You have a very, very defensively efficient, offensively efficient, and slow-paced team in New Mexico that is taking on Marquette, who plays completely different on both sides of the court. Offensively, very fast-paced. They want to get their shots up. They want to have fun there. But defensively, they can slow it down to a snail's pace and be super efficient there. I think it's going to be a slow game outside of when Marquette has the ball. I think because of that, you're going to have to limit mistakes. Turnovers are going to be the key in this game. The turnover battle is going to be, separated by one or two, and that's going to be who ends up winning the game. And I think that those turnovers at the end of the game are going to come from the Marquette Golden Eagles trying to play too fast, trying to keep themselves in this game. And I'm going to take New Mexico to advance here as well.
Yeah, let's flip that coin because I got Marquette.
All right, here we go. Coin flip. Heads for Marquette, tails for New Mexico. You know how it goes. And we've got Marquette moving on. I'm fine with that too, though. I like either side there. That one's definitely one of the biggest toss-up coin flips, no pun intended here, like we're doing, that I think we have in the first round. That'll be a fun game to watch. What's that, Friday at 7:25?
So obviously the cool thing about March Madness and the sport of basketball is some of these lower mid-major schools can provide, an upset. Unlike in football where, your bigger bodied individuals, especially against the trenches, should outplay anybody else in that sport. But here,
comes down to the fundamentals. Comes down to the teams that are just meshing together the best.
And obviously, it's a 3-point shooting type of game, but yet, it's the coaches as well. Can they coach up the right play? Can they find the mismatch that they want? All that. But also saying that, I still feel in this matchup, having a more prominent conference in the Big East and having to do battle in that type of conference already this year will give Marquette
a very tough conference. Yep.
Yeah.
No, they're battle tested because of that. I get it. All right, and then moving on to the last game of the South region, we've got our 2 and 15 matchup: Michigan State versus number 15 seed Bryant. This one, I would really love to give Bryant the benefit of the doubt here and give them some love as some people are trying to create some buzz behind them already that I've heard. But they just have a terrible draw here in a Michigan State team that is just deep and almost as perfect as a roster construction can go. They're going to play suffocating defense on Bryant here. I think this one gets out of hand and gets ugly. Well, we've got 10 o'clock Friday night. It's getting late out there in Cleveland, Ohio, where this is going to get played. Imagine you probably have a decent showing in terms of fans for Michigan State too, and they probably just walk down Bryant here.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of that hype comes from the PR team in Bryant, which I know is pretty good. They've done well in other sports and trying to hype their team up. But yeah, you really don't want to bet against
Tom Izzo in
Coach
March.
Izzo.
You don't.
You don't.
All right. Well, that completes the South. We'll go on to. We'll go to the West. I'll stay on the left side of the bracket. Then we'll move to the right.
Well, now I got to move down. All right.
I just scrolled down. It's not that hard. All right.
Okay.
Starting out with the West here, the Florida Gators and SEC champion against Norfolk State. This will be taking place in Raleigh on Friday around 6:50 p.m. Another one, kind of like we said about Auburn earlier. I think all these 1 seeds, I don't think we have a year in which we need to really worry about a 1 seed losing here. If there is any 1 seed that would screw up this game, I do think it would be Florida. Even though they've been playing very good ball, I feel like there's just something in their game that is not going to end up getting them all the way, let alone to the Final Four. But they do walk out of this one with a pretty easy win.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, at number 1, to be able to do what they did in that tough SEC conference, Florida.
Yep. All right, moving on here. This is the game I will say that I thought, outside of Louisville Creighton, UConn, Oklahoma has the hype behind it to make a great first game on Thursday. This one made the most sense to me to be the number 1 game, the first game to start out March Madness. But after all, we have it at 9:25 on Friday night. This one might be a bit of a toss-up here. You know, you got the back-to-back defending champion in UConn that had a tough run here this year, losing a bunch of guys, but ultimately being able to bounce back and make it to the tournament still. Will it be good enough for them to make it past Oklahoma in this first round? I think it's a tight game, but I think just barely, yes, they pull this one out before losing in the second round.
Yeah, no, I got UConn as well. And obviously the committee listened to Dan Hurley, and last year him saying that they didn't get any primetime games at the beginning, and they said, okay, Dan, we'll give you a primetime game.
True. This one's taking place in Raleigh as well. That'll be later on Friday, and we're going to take UConn to advance. Moving down here, 5-12 matchup, Memphis versus Colorado State. This one's going to be fun. Like we already have, based off the coin flip, a 12 upset over a 5. I'm looking at all of these matchups so far this year. I think in my first run around in my bracket, I might have had all 4 12 seeds, and then I realized that usually just doesn't happen, so I had to pick and choose which ones I did want to take the upset, and one that I did keep is Colorado State over Memphis.
Me too.
Yes, Memphis, good team in the AAC this year, but they might potentially be losing their playmaking guard, Tyrese Hunter, who injured his foot in the semis of the AAC tournament. Colorado State coming in hot here. They're actually favored as of right now. They opened minus 2.5 point favorites. They are still minus 2.5 points favorites. This team is hot. They've won 10 straight games leading up to the NCAA tournament and a Mountain West Conference tournament final win over Boise State to make it into here. Yep. And no, I like them. I think they stay hot. I think they take down Memphis here in the first round.
Yeah, I already agreed.
Yep.
When I saw this, I was like, definitely pencil them in.
All right, next matchup, 4-13. It's going to be Maryland versus your boys Grand Canyon that you have making the College World Series. Omaha 8 that we did in our predictions a couple weeks ago. However, sadly for them, I don't think they're going to keep that same magic this year, even though they were quite a fun team last year as well. I've got Maryland taking over in this one. They're minus 10.5 point favorites. I like Maryland a lot this year. I think Maryland can make a pretty deep run in this West region, and I just don't think it's going to be enough from the Grand Canyon Lopes. That's what they are. They're the antelopes.
Well, what I have to say here is coin flip.
Coin flip. It comes down to a coin flip for Maryland and Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon again. Team coming out of the West. Everyone hasn't seen them. Obviously, yes, they can scout them and see them, but Maryland already had a slip up in their own Big Ten tournament. I think they could slip up again. And I'm sorry for saying it's Scott Van Pelt, but I'm going to say it.
No, that's fair. It's also something to keep in mind. I didn't see this until now. This game is getting played in Seattle. There's going to be a heavy fan engagement for Grand Canyon over Maryland here, but we'll go to the coin flip.
And time zone.
Time zone change.
Is not on a time zone change. Maryland is.
That's true. All right, y'all know the deal here. Heads for Maryland, tails for Grand Canyon, and we are going to get tails. Grand Canyon is moving on in this one. Damn, knock out my potential West Region winner already. All right, this one's fun. We got number 6 Missouri versus number 11 Drake, in what I'm guessing is going to be the most heavily picked upset of the first round. And I think I'm going to go along with it too. This Drake team just knows how to win. It is close enough here on the spread. You're looking at -6.5 for Missouri. And while they did start off the year really hot, if they were still playing the ball that they played, I'd say up until the start of January, midway through January, I would probably give it to Missouri here. But the rest of the year, they kind of just limped through in the SEC, in conference. And Drake's fun. And we want to root on Drake just like everybody does. This is a team that just incredible success, finds ways to win this year. And they beat you in a number of ways, whether it's the defense, forcing the turnovers, like I've said, is a big point. I love the teams that can really force their turnovers and make their own possessions in the first round of the NCAA tournament. This is taking place in Wichita, Kansas. I have no idea where Drake is. That is a little closer for Missouri in terms of fans, but it's March Madness here, and we want to be fun. I got Drake, and I hope you do too.
I do too. Obviously, I think Drake was a potential team that, earlier in, Joe's little bracketology could have been out based on, a UNC, Texas run, what have you. But I think they've shown enough, obviously having 11 and again, SEC went 50-50 during the tournament or their second half of the year.
I mean, that's a step, but technically doesn't that have to be correct because one team has to win and one team has to lose?
Exactly.
Okay.
I wanted to have fun. But I'm not high on Missouri. Not at all.
Yeah. All right. We'll take Drake there. Next one. Texas Tech, the 3 seed versus UNC Wilmington, the 14 seed here. Another one. I think this is going to be a heavy upset pick. I think a lot of people are going to like UNC Wilmington here. I want to as well. However, this is where I think we need to be a little smart in terms of picking these games. A lot of people are going to be heavy on UNC Wilmington, and there are some upset picks that everybody thinks are going to happen, and then the higher seed does walk away with it. I think they struggle. I don't like Texas Tech too much this year, but I do think they pulled this one out in a close game, and it's going to bust some brackets early. So I think we take Texas Tech here.
No, I agree. UNCW will probably have the lead going into halftime, maybe a 5-point lead, but Texas Tech will have enough to win in the end, but a close game.
All right. One of the next matchups here, one of the last two in the West. This one, I guess just name value alone, should be one of the most anticipated and exciting games of the first round. I'm going to call it the disappointment bowl of the first round. We've got number 7 Kansas, number 10 Arkansas. Both these teams just underwhelming this year, but they did still end up making the tournament based off some runs at the end and some some important wins that they had earlier on in the season. This just in terms of college basketball here, you got Coach Self, you got Coach Cal, you got Kansas, you got that big recruiting class that should have been with Kentucky, but then ended up following Cal to Arkansas. They, like I said, they made their run at the end of the season, really. They started off terrible in SEC play. I think at one point they were like 0-7 or something, 0-6. But they did turn it around. Did end up going 8-10 in the conference, but did enough to make the tournament. And I just cannot get behind Kansas. I think in terms of both of these two teams that are very disappointing, and both that have very good college coaches and historical coaches that you should be able to trust in March, I think it comes down to the teams and the talent, and I think Kansas is just going to blow this one. I've got Arkansas taking this one.
I agree with you. Gonna be probably the best coaching game of the tournament. But yeah, I think the athletes out of Arkansas will find a way, and much like Kansas, I think they'll just have again, good athletes, but playing tight. They needed, some help to get in, I think, into this tournament as is. Yeah, I don't see it. I think they'll have a late turnover that will just implode them in Arkansas.
But this will be a tight game. This is Thursday night at 7:10. They knew what they were doing scheduling this one. This will be a fun watch. But yeah, Arkansas pulling that one out. And then to finish the West here, we've got the 2 and 15 seed. Don't think we need to spend too much time on this one. St. John's getting to play in Rhode Island. Going to have a lot of fans behind them. I like St. John's to go pretty far in this West. We're going to take them to advance.
Yes,
we'll move up to the East here, and we'll start with Duke, who plays the winner of American and Mount St. Mary's. Duke, this is arguably should have been the number 1 overall seed. Probably get Cooper Flagg back by Friday. Whether he's playing 100%, whether he's on a minutes restriction, just to get him back up to speed, I don't think it matters. Duke probably rolls in this one by 30 points.
Yeah.
But then the first game of Friday, Mississippi State and Baylor, the 8-9. This will be whoever goes on to face Duke in the second round, and this will be a tight one. I don't know. This is a toss-up. I do have Baylor taking this one. Trying to stay in line with the trend of number 9 seeds that have been 16-8 versus 8 seeds since 2018. You'd think that the higher seed would get through most, but in these tight games, these tight 8-9 matchups, the 9s are prevailing. Mississippi State is favored right now by 1.5 points. The line did open up with Baylor minus 1.5, so there has been some line movement there. But I've still got Baylor just being able to do enough to pull this one out. Yes, we see a lot of these SEC teams in the tournament, but it's you're seeming to sense a trend here. Like I said with Ole Miss, like I said with Texas A&M. I'm just not putting a lot of stock into these SEC guys. They were all beating up on each other, and I think Baylor is going to pull this one out.
Yes, I mean, obviously deep, and having a SEC school at 8 means that you are probably towards the bottom of getting in. Obviously, we just had Arkansas, a 10, upset a 7. But I think it's coaching. I had a lot of difficulty. I did take in my personal bracket Mississippi State, but I do not mind here doing Baylor because I had a difficult time picking. So
yeah,
we don't need to do a coin flip. I'll agree with Baylor.
I think this one, like I said, it comes down to little couple things here. It is a tight matchup. I will say one thing to highlight, and this is in the ESPN Tournament Challenge thing. Rebounding is crucial for Mississippi State. Big stat here. They're 17-4 when out rebounding opponents compared to 3-9 when they lose. Baylor may struggle a little bit there as they don't have a traditional center that's going to help them really in the paint, but they do a great job of all 5 people crashing the offensive boards and getting in there to make it messy. I think they do just enough to out rebound Mississippi State here just based off of hustle, and that's what I think ends up winning them this game. Moving on here, we got number 5 Oregon versus number 12 Liberty. another one, like I've been saying about these 512s, that a lot of people trying to get behind the hype of Liberty, and they're fun. And we always like rooting on Liberty in these tournaments or baseball, or whatever it may be that we see this team pop out of there. However, like I said, with Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington, I think this is a heavy pick for Liberty, and I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to take Oregon. Very big thing here, too. They were playing in Seattle, very close to home for them. Liberty's got a lot of travel they have to do, a lot of time zones they got to go through, like we were talking about earlier. I think a lot of people are going to be on the Liberty train, but give me the Ducks to advance.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, yeah, Liberty, great story. But yeah, I just don't think, I think again, conference-wise, Oregon and doing what they did in the Big Ten just will outplay them. So, Oregon.
Yeah. All right. Next one here, number 4, Arizona versus number 13, Akron. I've heard a lot of stuff about this Akron team. People want to see them win, and arguably they got a decent draw here in Arizona. That while this is a team that can shoot the lights out some nights and look really good, on the other side of it, Arizona can have some nights where they look really, really bad. And Akron, this is a team that went 17-1 in conference. They're 28-6 overall. They've only lost once in 2025 so far, and they do it with a great offensive balance. They go 9 deep, or even deeper, but they have 9 that average at least 6 points per game or more. They are the shortest team in the field, though. And you got to make up for that by, pushing the tempo offensively, getting your shots up on the 3-point line. It's going to come down to, are those hitting or not? I think they're going to hit in the first half. I think halftime adjustments, Arizona is going to focus on keeping them off the line and in turn slowing down their offensive game. And I think Arizona is going to be able to pull this one out slightly, but give me what it's looking at here. We had open line at minus 15.5 for Arizona. That line has already moved to 13.5 points. I'll take Akron to cover 100%.
Yeah.
But give me Arizona to move on.
Yeah. I was going to say same thing. If you want to probably have a safe bet to cover, take Akron. But yeah, Arizona and the coaching will just be too much in the end.
Yep. Number 6 seed BYU versus number 11 VCU here. This is an interesting one. I think it could be a toss-up. VCU seems to always be a great team to look at making a run in March Madness. We've seen them do it before. We've seen them make a Final Four, probably like 10 plus years ago at this point or something, but they always seem to be a tough out. The only thing that is going to give the edge to BYU for me is the fact that this, once again, regionally based, this is getting played in Colorado. Not too far of travel for BYU, should have a lot of fans there and everything as well. VCU going over a couple time zones.
And playing in altitude.
And playing in altitude, too, as well. And BYU's just really hot right now. So I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to give it to the hot hand. I'm going to take BYU to win this one.
Yeah, I will, too. And, I think don't underestimate the altitude, because VCU is going to want to run, and it's going to be hard for them after halftime.
Yep. Next one, number 3, Wisconsin versus number 14, Montana. Like I had mentioned earlier, I was watching the Big Ten tournament before Selection Sunday, where Michigan did end up beating Wisconsin there. And it's good for Michigan there. They needed that win to get their 5 seed. I think Wisconsin was fine where they were at. They knew the seed that they were going to get. I don't think winning the Big Ten was necessarily going to push them up to the 2 seed line. But I don't think it's going to matter, because I think they are an incredibly well-rounded team. We know this just based off of the past. Wisconsin does get up for these tournaments, and they can make deep runs whenever they choose to do. And I think they pretty easily walk through Montana here in the first round.
Yeah. Big Cat with Pardon My Take, Barstool Sports. We love you. Please sign us. You're going to be happy. We're going to take Wisconsin here.
Yep. And while it's looking at this, I know everybody's going to be like, oh, you're going very chalky in the East. We just had a million upsets in the other regions, so don't get too worried here. I think even in my personal one, had a bunch of upsets in the other regions. The East was pretty chalky for me throughout. Just think they did a good job scheduling and pairing up the East region. But they do have some heavy hitters there. So
and there is always a region that is chalky.
I mean, and in general, usually like it does get a little chalky. The first round can be chaotic, but then you get a little deeper in, past the round of 32 into the Sweet 16 and stuff. Then you really start seeing the chalk happen with these 1 seeds and the 2 seeds. Now, it might be crazy and wacky how they get there, who they're playing in the second round, who they play in the third. But, once we get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, don't worry too much about the chalk because the best teams, the best 8 teams, the best 16 teams, they make it there for a reason, and they're highly seeded for a reason. So,
and I think more importantly this year than any.
Yeah.
Yes, some can say, was there any overwhelming just juggernaut like we've seen in years past, the Gonzaga or whatever? No. I mean, Duke in itself has been pretty
Duke and Auburn.
And Auburn, but yet I still think that the cream of the crop of the higher seeded teams eventually will, as you said, Sweet 16 and stuff like that, just outplay everybody else.
Yep. All right. Looking here at the 7-10 matchup, we got St. Mary's, we got Vanderbilt. This one's also tight, but like I just said, I think I'm still going to go chalk here. You're looking at a St. Mary's team that we see almost every year, and they play the same almost every year. Very slow, very efficient defensively. They're going to look to beat you on the defensive end. While that might be a little tough for them as Vanderbilt, some people may have said, how did they make it in here? I understand with the SEC and everything. But whereas St. Mary's is going to want to have to beat them on the defensive end and being a pest out there, Vanderbilt takes tremendous care of the ball and trying to limit turnovers. However, I still just don't think it's going to be enough. There's going to be a very close game. I could see a 63-59 win, but give me St. Mary's to advance here.
Yeah. Again, I think, SEC, multiple, you just said 14 teams. I think, unfortunately, putting St. Mary's at a 7, disservice to them by the committee, but no problem here, St. Mary's.
Yep. And then another SEC team here. I feel like we're just talking about one every single matchup because they got so many in here. Alabama should run laps around Robert Morris. I don't think we need to talk too much into this.
No.
I think later on in the tournament, maybe we need to worry about Alabama and can that pace, stay what it needs to be in order for them to win games. But I think they walk through this one. Going on to the Midwest, then our last region for the round of 64. Start off with Houston, the 1 seed against who is this? SIU Edwardsville. I'm sure it's a great story. I'm sure you guys are going to have a ton of fun on Friday with a watch party at 2:00 for the first 6 minutes of this game before it gets ugly. But Houston, just like a lot of these other 1 seeds, dominant in the way that they win games. This team is deep. This team has been here before as a 1 seed. Sampson, as a coach, has just done phenomenal work with Houston over the last 5 years or so in building this program. They walk through this one pretty easily.
Yeah. Yep. Houston.
But they've got a decent matchup to see who they're going to play in the next round. We've got number 8 seed Gonzaga, number 9 seed Georgia. That's taking place in Wichita, Kansas. This one, to me, once again, not really trusting the SEC and Georgia here. I don't know if they really did enough to earn this one. And at the end of the day, once we come to March, I'm going to put my trust in Mark Few in coaching this Gonzaga team to another win, as they do every year.
Agreed. Gonzaga.
Last 5-12 matchup that we have here. This one should be pretty fun as well. We've got Clemson as the 5 seed. We've got the McNeese Cowboys, 19-1 in conference, as the 12 seed. McNeese, if y'all remember, was a heavy upset pick over Gonzaga last year at the 5-12, and they ended up getting ran out the fucking building. A lot of people were on McNeese. They thought they would be cool. I think they were like 30-3 or something last year. And they weren't able to get it done. They're coming back for revenge this year against a Clemson team that they're hoping to be able to pull an upset on. Clemson with a 5, I think this is fine. I think you could have them anywhere from a 4 to a 6. I think that second half collapse in the ACC semifinal definitely didn't help them, but I think they got a draw that they want. I think they like where they're at. I'm not sure how far I'll have them going, but I think they just outclassed McNeese again, and I think we take the 5 here.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Now, this one here. Like I said on the other side of the bracket, Missouri Drake. Drake is my number one probably upset pick, and I feel pretty confident about that. If there was any game in this first round that I have more confidence in an upset, it will be High Point over Purdue here.
Yep.
It 100% is High Point. This team is fun. This team is fast. This team's got energy. They want to shoot. They want to rebound. They'll be everywhere on the court here. And Purdue, after a NCAA championship runner-up run last year, will be knocked out in the first round to High Point, and their season will be ending early.
I totally agree. I think first time in 21 years or something, 1 loss team in High Point. And the fans, man, those kids get behind this team. Just the energy that's going to happen, definitely High Point.
Yeah. Next one, we got number 6 Illinois versus the winner of the play-in in Texas and Xavier. This one's interesting because I'll be honest with you, I don't like Illinois. I don't like them at the 6, but I also really don't like Texas or Xavier. I think both of these teams should have missed the NCAA tournament. For the likes of, like I said earlier, maybe a West Virginia or Indiana. I think both these teams got in by the skin of their teeth. I don't think whoever wins the play-in game, it's going to change my mind. I think you take Illinois, and I don't like Illinois for the second round. There could be a world in which they shit the bed in this game. I just really, really don't like who's coming out of this 11 games. So give me Illinois to advance.
Yeah, and I agree. I'll take Illinois only because, again, I like Illinois over Texas. I would think it would be a closer game with Xavier. I'm kind of on Xavier, but yet, again, you've already played a game. Even if Xavier does come out, Illinois will be fresh. And because of that fact that Texas could come out of that game, and I don't like Texas at all. So, yeah, we'll go with Illinois.
I will say, though, Illinois got very lucky. If they were paired against any of these other 11s, whether it was Drake, whether it was the winner of San Diego State, UNC, or VCU, I would have taken that 11 seed over them. They got lucky with their draw getting this game, and that's the only reason that they're going to move on in the Midwest here. Next one, we've got number 3 Kentucky versus number 14 Troy. I'll be honest, I don't know too much about the Troy basketball team this year. Kentucky is Kentucky, and they're going to do what they do. Although it was a tough SEC, still awarded them a 3 seed. But this is they're looking to advance for the first time through the first weekend since 2019. We haven't seen a Kentucky team make the second weekend in 6 years. I think that streak probably ends up breaking this year. Give me Kentucky to move on.
Yeah, I just think that Kentucky and again, wanting to break that streak and very lucky that they get to do it against a Troy team. So, yeah, Kentucky.
All right, on to the last 2 games here. The round of 64, we got number 7 UCLA versus number 10 Utah State. I'll be honest, I don't like either of these teams. I don't like this matchup. If there's going to be one game on Thursday and Friday that I don't watch at all, it would be this one.
Yeah.
And for the sake of March Madness and for the sake of the chaos, give me Utah State here. I just don't think UCLA, from what I've paid attention to from them this year, I just don't think they're a reliable team. I don't think, even though they are the higher seed and everything here, that we're going to be able to see them show up for the bright lights in the big moment. Give me Utah State to win this one.
You know, for the sake of us and time here, no coin flip, we'll go Utah State. I personally have UCLA, but you know, then that's it for their bracket. Or
Do you have a big reason as to why? Do you think it's an overwhelming UCLA win here? Or is it very toss-up?
I think it's a toss-up. I'm just going probably on
let's
tradition. All right, coin flip it.
Let's coin flip it. Heads for UCLA, tails for Utah State, and we have Utah State still moving on anyways. Okay. Last game of the round of 64 here, we've got number 2 Tennessee, we've got number 15 Wofford. This one is going to get ugly. This Tennessee team is a menace defensively, and for these poor Wofford Terriers who are going to come into the first round and try to make some noise, you're playing this. Now, granted, Lexington is for University of Kentucky, but it should be pretty close in terms of like fans that'll show up for Tennessee here. Wofford is, regionally close to. They might have some fans travel, but I think it's going to be a heavy Tennessee audience, and I think it's going to be a heavy Tennessee win.
I think Wofford will show up in the first 10 minutes, 12 minutes, have a lead, but yeah, Tennessee will eventually show their muscle and win.
All right, before we get on to the second round here and kind of move through the rest of these picks, if you had to pick out of the 1 and 2 seeds, because we did have everyone moving on, if there was one of the 1 or 2 seeds that you would say has the best chance of getting upset and we see a crazy upset first round, who is it going to be?
The 1 and 2? Probably the one I just said.
Tennessee Wofford?
Yep.
Interesting. I think we differ there. I'm going to go, even though I did say they should run laps around them, if their pace isn't working for them, that is a quick way for them to lose a game. I'm going to take Alabama against Robert Morris. I think if any 1 or 2 seed is going to go down on the first weekend in the first games, it will be Alabama because their pace just isn't going to be working like it needs to be, and Robert Morris is going to be able to just stick around there. All right, we'll back up to the top, and now that we've gone through and talked about all of these teams, we're kind of going to be able to fly through the rest of this bracket because you know how we feel about them. So we'll start back at the top of the South. We've got number 1 Auburn, number 8 Louisville. I'm taking Auburn.
Auburn.
Yep. Like I said, I think Louisville got shafted here with the 8 seed, but I just don't think it's going to be enough against this complete Auburn team.
Yeah.
Very fun game here. Very fun second round matchup. We've got UC San Diego, the 12 seed, against number 13 Yale. And who's going to be our first Cinderella run team of this year? I've got UC San Diego pulling this one out. I really like them. But it could be Yale either way.
I got Yale. Personally, in my bracket, I got Michigan because I like them. But because UC San Diego made that upset, and so I don't have this, but I'm going Yale.
All right, let's flip a coin. We got heads for UC San Diego. We got tails for Yale, and we're going to have tails. Yale will be moving on. I could see it happening too. I like San Diego. But if we get a 12-13 matchup, quite frankly, I don't care who wins because that's just awesome, and we'll see if they can. And it sets up a rematch of Auburn-Yale from last year. Wouldn't that be crazy if they knocked them out 2 straight years? We'll get onto it in a little bit. The third game of the round of 32 in the South, we've got who we assumed is going to be Carolina, beating South Dakota State. Or, no, not South Dakota State. Beating San Diego State.
San Diego.
Stroke here. San Diego State losing to UNC. So UNC beats Ole Miss. And so we've got Carolina versus Iowa State here. Like we said in the first round, we do envision seeing the Tar Heels win this one, but it will be a short-lived tournament appearance as I think Iowa State's going to pull this one out.
I agree.
And then to finish off the South, we've got number 7 Marquette, number 2 Michigan State. Like I said earlier, this is where, if it gets a little chalky, it gets a little chalky. I really would love to say Marquette here. I know we've seen this matchup a couple times over the last few years. I think as recent as 2 years ago in like a 2-10 matchup, I think. when they saw each other in the round of 32. But give me Tom Izzo. Give me Tom Izzo in March. I don't see Michigan State not making it out of the first round or first
Yeah,
weekend.
I mean, both schools very close to each other. But yet, in the end, you don't want to, and especially when Michigan State is a number 2 seeded team in this tournament with all their history of tournament and Izzo as the coach, Michigan State.
All right, moving on to the West here. We've got number 1 Florida versus number 8 UConn. In my bracket, personally, I have Florida here. I think this is where we just see the UConn team is not the same team that they've had the last 2 years. However, now I'm looking at it again for the second time. And something in me is telling me, is this where a 1 seed goes out? Is it Florida losing to UConn? Do they make it through the first round and then they start to smell the blood in the water and the championship just goals that they've had for the last 2 years? Does that come back to this team? Does that come back to Hurley? Are they able to pull this out against Florida? Dad, I'll give you the decision here. I'm not flipping a coin, whatever you say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, much like you in my bracket, I have Florida moving on. Yes, talking about it more, thinking about UConn and what they've done and the opportunity to go three-peat, but we already saw a team earlier this year not be able to do that. I'm going to go Florida.
Okay. It was close though. I'll have a bracket where they end up beating Florida. I mean, you have 25 brackets that you can make on ESPN Tournament Challenge, and I've got 4 days until these games start going. So we might get all 25 brackets up this year. I don't know. I think the most I've ever done is back in like high school. I think I hit like 17 brackets. And in the last couple of years, I think I've only hit like 6. Most recently, like probably 10 in 2018 or something like that. But no, we'll have some fun ones this year. Another 12-13 matchup here in the second round for us. This one being Colorado State and Grand Canyon because of the coin flip. I hope this one doesn't come down to a coin flip as much as you love your Grand Canyon Lopes here and getting them on through the first round. I think the hot streak of Colorado State and the hot streak is just going to continue based off of what they do against Memphis as well and bringing in that same energy. I think they're going to take this one and move on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Move on, the Rams.
All right, next one. We got number 11 Drake versus number 3 Texas Tech. I'm going to go out and say it. I'm going to take Drake here. Like I said in the last round, I don't like Texas Tech too much. A lot of people are going to pick them to lose in the first round and then set up a Drake UNC Wilmington round of 32 game, which I think Drake would ultimately end up winning as well. But give me Drake to take down Texas Tech here. Like I said, I don't like him, and I think this is where we see him go.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think personally I have Texas Tech moving on. Again, just I went more chalk later on, but for the sake of fun, yeah, let's take Drake.
Let's take Drake. And then last one of the West, we've got number 10 seed Arkansas, number 2 seed St. John's. I think this game should be pretty cut and dry, easy. I think this is just Arkansas is just going to get outclassed here. I think these are two teams on completely different levels. St. John's is one of the elite teams in college basketball this year, and I don't think Arkansas really stands a chance.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned earlier first round, great matchup in terms of coaching with the Kansas game, but yeah, this would be an ultimate coaching game.
This would.
But yeah, I agree. St. John's is just too powerful.
All right, moving on to the East, we've got number 1 Duke, number 9 Baylor. We're going to move on Duke here. I don't think they really see a tough matchup until maybe not even this Elite Eight game. And who will be meeting them there? Well, it's going to be either number 5 Oregon, number 4 Arizona. Like I was saying in the Arizona-Akron game, I think You have an Arizona team that can play hot and play well, but they will also shoot themselves in the foot, and I think they do that against Oregon. I think we take the 5 seed Oregon to move on here, and we don't root against Dana here like we're not doing against Tom Izzo and all these other great coaches in March.
I agree. Yeah. I think personally, again, I have Arizona, but you made a great point, the coaching. So take Oregon.
Next, we got number 6 BYU, number 3 Wisconsin. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one because personally, I think I had Wisconsin moving on, but I could be fine either way. I don't really know what's going to happen in this game, and I could see a BYU win here.
I could as well, but I just think Wisconsin's run and their talent, and again, what they've done in past tournaments, especially once you get to this point, you take Wisconsin.
Okay. And then last one of the East, we've got St. Mary's versus Alabama. I brought it up in the Florida
style.
Yeah, very contrast of styles here. And whereas, I think in mine, I picked Alabama. Like I was saying about Florida, UConn, I'm looking at this again, and we're talking about contrast of styles. And when you have two very stylistic different teams, and one that is very fast, offensive paced, get up and down the floor against one that wants to slow down the game, slow it down to a snail's pace, and beat you in every single little movement that you have. I think the second time around that I'm looking at this, I want to trust the team that's going to slow down the game more than I am the team that's going to speed it up. Let's take St. Mary's here.
I agree with you. Yeah. As much as, again, personally, I think Alabama, only because, but I had a very difficult time in this one.
Yeah.
In my own bracket. But yeah, I mean, St. Mary's, and you could look at the fact that, the conference they came out of, but that conference is getting better. Gonzaga used to just run away with it, and then it was just this game against them. San Francisco's done better. Seattle's done well, the Pilots, but yeah, take St. Mary's.
All right. And then moving on to our last region here, the round of 32, we've got the Midwest. We've got number 1 Houston versus another WCC team in Gonzaga, the 8 seed. Do we give this one much thought as to knocking out the 1 seed, or is Houston going to move on? Yep. Okay.
Houston.
That's what I thought too. I think this is also just these teams are in different classes, sort of like the Arkansas St. John's thing. No matter which way you try to spin it, I don't think they're pulling it off.
I mean, in any other bracket, I would take Gonzaga. That's kind of hard against Houston.
Yep. Number 5 Clemson, number 13 High Point. Let's keep the fun going. Give me High Point over Clemson here. I don't like Clemson to be able to beat this High Point team, and let's have some fun. Last 2, we've got Illinois versus Kentucky. You know how I feel about Illinois. We're going to take Kentucky here. Don't think they should have made it out of the first round either. And then lastly, we've got Utah State versus Tennessee. I think we take Tennessee here, even though you were saying it could be close with Wofford. I think we are on a collision course to see a Kentucky-Tennessee Sweet 16 matchup.
Yep.
All right, moving back up to the top of the bracket, we are into the Sweet 16. We've got Auburn versus Yale in a repeat of last year's game that ended up knocking out the Tigers. Will they be able to get it done this year against Yale? I'm going to say yes.
Really?
Yeah, I think this is where Yale's run ends. I think this Auburn. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had Yale beating the Tigers.
Oh, I might have said that the wrong way too. Yeah, we take Auburn here.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom of the South, we've got number 3 Iowa State, number 2 Michigan State. This one, you think it'd be heavily favoring the 2 seed here at Michigan State. They are 37-24 against 3 seeds. Since 2018, though, 2 seeds have won just 5 of 11 meetings with the 3 seeds. If it wasn't for the fact that Keyshawn Gilbert will be out for Iowa State here, like I said, I think if he was in, this is pretty easily an Iowa State win, I think. And even with him being injured, I just still see Iowa State being able to pull this one out over Michigan State.
I have them in my personal bracket, Iowa State.
All right. Well, we'll move them on. Move down to the West. We've got number 1 Florida versus number 12 Colorado State. God, I want to make it fun here, but I just don't know if I can. I really don't like Florida, so I want to knock them out here, as I think they are going to go out, and a lot of people are going to have them go pretty far, and we could use this to win some points on our bracket. But I just don't know if it's Colorado State that's going to be able to do it to them. Me personally, I had Maryland over Grand Canyon. I had Maryland over Colorado State, and I had Maryland beating Florida here. But with no Maryland in the picture, what do you think?
Yeah, Florida.
Okay. And then at the bottom, this personally, just in terms of teams that I like watching, this might be one of my favorite games of the bracket if this ends up happening, in number 11 Drake versus number 2 St. John's. I think this would just be a phenomenal game, super fun all around. And while I love Drake and what they've been able to do for us on this run against Missouri and Texas Tech, I think this is where it ends. I think St. John's is ultimately the best team in the West. That'll give you a little bit of a look into the future of what I'm going to say in this Florida St. John's game if we get it. But I think St. John's takes out Drake here.
I agree.
All right, moving up to the East, we've got Duke versus Oregon. Once again, not going to talk about these ones too much. We're just trying to roll through, and I think Duke is the best team in the tournament. They are the best team in the nation, and they will take down Oregon here. In their matchup, we've got number 3 Wisconsin versus number 7 St. Mary's. This one would be an interesting game, and I think St. Mary's would try to slow down the pace and try to beat Wisconsin as we envision them beating Alabama. I just don't think it's going to be able to work 2 straight games once you have game tape on this and know how to break down their defensive looks. So give me Wisconsin to move on.
Yeah, especially when Wisconsin could have easily been earlier in the year a 2 seed. So yeah, Wisconsin.
Yep. And then the last one, we've got the Midwest. We've got number 1 Houston versus number 13 High Point. Let's not forget, this is where Houston lost last year. Granted, it was against Duke in the Sweet 16. But this year, I don't think it's going to matter. I love all of these Cinderella run teams like Drake and High Point that were getting to this point, but I just don't know if they'll be able to pull it off against Houston.
Again, the cream of the crop just will eventually win in the talent, Houston.
Again, this is what we say. Once you get later on into these brackets, if it feels chalky, it's probably okay because it gets chalky near the end. It is hard to make a run as these double-digit seeds, but nonetheless, they should be, both of these teams, very happy with a Sweet 16 appearance. And then the last one of the Midwest, we've got number 3 Kentucky versus number 2 Tennessee. I'd love to hear what you have in this game.
Yeah, again, you would think that the talent around Kentucky, but Tennessee also has talent. Surprising as it is, only from, years past when I used to watch, I think Tennessee might be the best athletic school in college sports all around.
Yeah.
When you take the football, the baseball, and now the basketball,
yep.
It's amazing what this university has done with athleticism at a whole, and I'm going to take Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm happy you say that. I think they, outside of Duke potentially, Tennessee even could make a run at being called the best defensive team in this tournament. I think they keep teams to like less than 28% from inside the arc, which is just unbelievable defensive efficiency. I will say here, though, this will be closer than we think. If it wasn't for the fact that Kentucky swept Tennessee in the regular season, I'd be taking Kentucky here. But it is hard to beat a team 3 times, and I think the third time is going to be Tennessee pulling this out. All right, so that brings us to our Elite 8. It got a little chalky here at the end, but it is fine. Up in the South, who will be representing them in the Final Four? We've got Auburn, number 1. We've got Iowa State, number 3. I'm taking Auburn to advance. Yep.
Auburn.
In the West, we've got number 1 Florida versus number 2 St. John's. Everybody say it with me. Give me the Johnnies over the Gators in the West.
I think, though, personally, I went Florida, but in hindsight and talking about it more, yeah, St. John's. But it's very much St. John's. If they can't rebound, if they can't shoot the three well, they could be defeated.
That is the only thing that I'm a little worried about here in this game, especially because Florida is pretty good defensively. St. John's is arguably the worst three-point shooting team in the nation that made the tournament. They shoot horribly from three, but they find ways to win games without it. I think it's just going to be enough at this point. You're a couple games in, you're winning games without shooting the three well. If they do have a night where they pop off and they shoot well from three, it's lights out. It's over for Florida here. But I think they can just do enough and match their defensive identity and intensity out of Florida just to be able to pull this one out.
Hey, at least it's fun. Our bracket that we're doing, we got St. John's. My personal bracket, I got Florida, though.
All right. In the East, we've got number 1 Duke versus number 3 Wisconsin.
Do we even need to talk about this?
No, probably not. I was going to say a rematch of the 2015 national championship, but we're going to take Duke to move to the Final Four there. And then in the Midwest, number 1 Houston versus number 2 Tennessee. This Final Four is looking potentially a lot like mine in my personal bracket, and dependent upon this pick, it'll be the same exact Final Four, which I don't like too much. So let me hear what you have here and who moves on out of the Midwest.
I think it's a team that really just turned it on towards the end. Could have been arguably, if it wasn't a year where you had Auburn and Duke, a number 1 overall rated team in Houston, but I'm going to go Houston.
All right. See, I had Tennessee, but I'm happy to go Houston here, so I don't have the exact same Final Four. But in our Final Four, meeting in San Antonio, Texas on April 5th, we've got number 1 seed Auburn versus number 2 St. John's. In my personal one, I've got St. John's here, but I think for the sake of the podcast and for the sake of great basketball, the 2 best teams in the nation will be meeting each other in the national championship, and that's going to be Auburn and Duke. Correct. It sounds chalky, but they are the 2 best teams in the nation. We saw this last year. There was some chaos, but we did end up seeing UConn and Purdue, the 2 best teams in the nation, get to the national championship and play each other there. And that this one, for those of you that you guys can't see it because this is not a video episode, but I feel like this is a bit of a conflict of interest because I am wearing a Duke polo right now. So, Dad, I'm going to leave this up to you. Give me who is our national champion for our A New Era podcast 2025 official bracket. Is it the Tigers or is it the Blue Devils?
It's the Blue Devils. They are just way too talented. I mean, obviously, arguably the best player, the number 1 draft pick coming out in Cooper Flagg, but yet without him in these last couple games in the tournament, Knipple has just shown up. James, I love him. It's Duke.
All right. I'm happy. Okay. See, I didn't do it. You guys, I didn't say it. I do now have 2 Duke brackets already. So we'll see how many of my 25 do end up turning out to be Duke. But you're picking Duke as the winner. I'll tell you our tiebreaker, how many total points are going to be scored. Duke will win this game 77-70. So that's going to be 147 as the tiebreaker. And there it is. Our bracket is submitted. That is a New Era podcast bracket. If you would like, our link is available on our Twitter to join this bracket group if you would like to compete with us this year as well. Or if you just need to search it up, I think it's just, where is this? A New Era bracket, A New Era 2025 bracket group. You can add your entry in there. The password is ANE25. Go in there, compete with us. Let's see how your brackets do. But it was good, Dad. That was fun.
That was.
All right, here, Dad. You got time to still talk about? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. And again, if you can beat our bracket, you will win a prize.
Indeed. Yeah, we'll give out a New Era podcast sweatshirt probably. If you can beat us, hopefully not. Hopefully we cooked with this bracket. I kind of liked it. Sounds a little bit too much like mine, but I kind of like it. All right, here, Dad. So moving on from the bracket stuff, we just gave you an hour and 30 minutes of the best bracket breakdown that you're going to get from a sports podcast for 2025. We'll move on here to a little more of not the local stuff, but the stuff we talk about, and that's going to be some New England sports. We don't have much that we're going to talk about this week because it is a big March Madness week, but the big thing that we did want to talk about was the Patriots, as NFL free agency did kick off last Tuesday. We were talking about some of the guys that we would like, some targets and stuff for free agency, and now we've actually got the new class of the Patriots. I was talking with you all throughout the day, the first day of free agency, how this was going. I felt like we were knocking everything out the park. The first couple signings were Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, tackle Morgan Moses, Milton Williams. I mean, those five alone, I was like, they are just kicking ass. And then they go to sign Mac Hollins, and I was like, all right, bring me back down to earth here. I don't understand that one a little bit. But did make some other depth signings. Curious Tonga, DT. You got Josh Dobbs coming in potentially as the backup quarterback, which might signal to a move of Joe Milton during the draft for a pick. You got, like I said, Mac Hollins, wide receiver, edge rusher, Caleb Von Chasen, offensive lineman, who is this guy? Schwitzer? I didn't see this one. This must have been soon or more recently. And then the last one I've got here, safety, Marcus Epps coming over from Las Vegas. We'll say I feel like we addressed with Landry, with Spillane, with Carlton, with Moses, and with Milton Williams. I was loving all of those signings because I think it hits every need that we really needed, and you did it with tremendous players as well. Not a lot of people are going to bring up the signing of Robert Spillane, I bet, but I think this is one of the most high-impact signings that we're going to make this offseason. You and me know Spillane from our IDP fantasy and how much of a dog he is in terms of getting tackles, but I think he is just a great linebacker that you can have middle of the field, lurking for the run defense. He can, pressure a little bit.
I think he's going to be like Zach Bond type.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to be great. I think that's probably our best bargain signing, I guess, but the most valuable one. Milton Williams, coming in 4 years, $104 million, $26 million a year, the highest. He passes Brady for the highest paid Patriot ever. This is something that we've talked about since episode 1 of this podcast. The last couple of years of Patriots football, we've been getting absolutely dismantled on the run game defensively. We needed something to be in there to really shore that up. And I mean, I've seen multiple highlights and stuff in his highlight reel from the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl run this year with the Eagles, but Milton put on a clinic in terms of getting to the quarterback or just getting around the quarterback and bringing pressure to Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He is a big guy that I don't think, just because he's not playing beside a Jordan Davis or anything, it's going to make him any worse. I think he's going to be a real star here. And then along that line with Christian Barmore, Keon White, and then, maybe an Abdul Carter. Maybe it's Harold Landry coming off the edge. Whatever that is, that defensive line, those four are going to be great this year, I think, for the Pats.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, you could say, did Davis help out Williams? But I don't think so. And I think this is going to be getting the amount of money the kid got. I think he's absolutely going to show that he is deserving and be that star. And, Christian Barmore, we thought that, unfortunately with the blood clots that he got, we thought that he was going to be our defensive tackle, that guy that just stuffs in the middle. And I think because of Williams, he can play off of him and be a star that we thought the kid was going to be a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great for him in terms of his development and turning him into a real great DT down there in the trenches. Last one of these, last two that I want to bring up, like I said, the big ones. Morgan Moses. Love this one in terms of a veteran signing. that on the line, we needed O-line help. I sent you a video on Twitter. I'm not going to go through it here, but he was talking about at his introductory press conference, saying everything that you'd want to hear out of a vet coming into, a team with a young quarterback. He was talking a lot about how he wants to figure out how to play off of Drake so that it can help his development. And it sounded like he's really there to spread as much knowledge as he can to Drake and protect him as well. Now, granted, he won't be playing the left tackle. Morgan Moses has always played right tackle in his career. The people that are saying he is now our left tackle of the next 3 years, congratulations, you're wrong. We will still need to target a left tackle in the draft or later on in free agency. But I still love this signing to really strengthen up the offensive line that has been a key part of why we've been losing games recently.
And now your whole right side of the line looks awesome. And again, having a right-handed quarterback, if he's going to have to roll out of the pocket or move the pocket, move it to the right. You don't want to go to the left where he can throw off his shoulder,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I was wondering, if he didn't have the flexibility to play the left tackle, why is it going and spending big money on getting Morgan Moses in there to shore up that right side? You might have just figured it out completely. It's that Vrabel in this new offense with, Josh McDaniels, they're going to play some play action and they're going to roll out Drake and they want a big bodied guy over there to protect him. I think he just cracked the code as to why he was signed. And I think that's going to work really well in terms of getting Drake out to make these plays, but not putting him in the position that we did last year where he's getting out, trying to extend plays and then getting hit, the concussion against the Jets.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you saw even last year, Ramondre seemed to do a lot better running towards the right side rather than the left in most of his big runs. So it just creates a much better offensive side on that right side between your guard and tackle now.
I agree. And then the last one here, I want to talk about the last of the other big ones very quickly here. Carlton Davis signing a 3-year, $54 million deal with us. Arguably puts us up there as one of, if not the top cornerback duo in the league, I believe. Him and Christian Gonzalez are going to be hawking shit down all year from opposing quarterbacks. And I think, whereas last year nobody wanted to throw to Christian Gonzalez and he was so good that, could have arguably been the comeback player of the year, you don't want to throw to his side. But now, Carlton comes in here and you don't have a side that you can pick and choose as much as you want and just pick apart. You're going to be forced to throw it to Gonzalez's side a little more this year, and it's going to put him more in the position for pass breakups or potentially interceptions. And then just lazy throws to the other side to try to keep the play moving. You've got Carlton Davis over there that I think is going to be able to jump some routes and get some easy picks for us too.
And obviously what it's telling you is where we're leaning towards, I would say, come the draft.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
At this point now, you really don't need Travis as a corner.
Yeah, you don't, but that's fine because like we've said, they view him as the top wide receiver and they view him as the top corner. They might be, if he falls to 4 now, they might be drafting him for wide receiver because they didn't address that in free agency and then sprinkle him in at cornerback. Whereas, like he said at the combine and previously, he wanted to kind of be a corner first with a wide receiver second. I think if he comes to New England, we're going to tell him that's not what we want you for. We'll get you in there at the corner, playing 10, 20, 15, 20 snaps, probably maybe like in that nickel corner position for him, really. But if he is drafted to New England, yes, I think he's drafted as a wide receiver to help us on the offensive end.
I mean, could you imagine putting him in the slot or, sprinkling between Marcus Jones, Hunter, Davis, and Gonzalez?
Yeah. I mean,
you could just
where do you throw as an opposing quarterback?
Yeah, you could. Obviously, then put Hunter on the outside, Davis on the inside, Davis out, then throw Marcus in the nickel. It could be a lot of fun for Williams in the defense.
I agree. I definitely agree. All right, here, Dad. Our last bit before we get out of here. Let's continue on with our prospect rankings for the O-line for the 2025 NFL Draft. For those of you that aren't aware, for this one, we're not going, through top 10 tackles, top 10 centers, top 10 guards. We're just going our top 10 O-line as a whole. And so I'll start it off here, Dad. I'm pretty sure the top two are consensus. Everybody knows who the top two are. It gets a little shakier a little later on, but I'm going to go with my guy, Will Campbell, at number one for the best offensive lineman as the tackle. I know it could be Banks, and a lot of people are making the case for Banks. I have him at 2, and I know the arm measurements or the hand measurements of Will Campbell were worrying some people at the combine that, yes, he's got that 6'6", 319 build to be an offensive tackle in the league, but he's got shorter arms or shorter hands that might make him better fit for a guard position. But I just feel like he's one of those guys that, regardless of the measurables, he's just going to work, and he's going to be a great cornerstone tackle for whichever team does take him. If it does end up being the Patriots, that would be awesome. I've still got him just barely above Banks at 1 and Banks at 2.
No, I agree. And yeah, when you talk about the arm, his length of arms, still a guy at 6'6" and the weight at 319 compared to Banks 315. I know it's only 4 pounds, but still, if the guy has that shuttle speed and he runs a 4.98 compared to his Banks at 5'16", guys they're going to think that they could stay close because of his arms and maybe then use speed, but I do not see a 6'6" guard at all. You do not want that. I know Drake is a tall quarterback, but still those lanes that he's going to throw through, you don't want a guy at 6'6" clogging that up. There's no question this kid is a tackle, and I think going to do well as a left tackle.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And then I'm assuming you have Banks at 2 then?
Yep.
All right. My number 3, I've got Armand Membu out of Missouri, offensive tackle, 6'4", 332. Did end up running, I think, the fastest 40 time, or timed for the fastest 40 time out of all the O-linemen. He was a guy that was probably going to be pretty high up here on draft boards going into the combine, but then the combine definitely helped his stock push him up there. I know some people might have him as the 4th or the 5th best option. I've got him at the 3rd because I think that speed is going to, translate to the league. I like that, especially in terms of how the game is evolving. More running, more, whether it be, rolling out a little bit or some play action. I think with that speed and that size of him, at 6'4", 332, he can still get to the outside well. And so I've got him as my 3rd best offensive lineman.
I have Josh Simmons at 3 for me, only because, again, a program in Ohio State and another good athlete who's just going to be vicious coming off the ball. So I got Simmons. And then your guy at number 4 for me.
Okay. No, that's fine. I had Simmons at 4. Like I said, probably before the NFL Combine, I would have flipped those. I would have had it like you. I would have had Simmons at 3, Membu at 4. I'm going to take what happened in the Combine, and I still like his measurables there, even though Josh Simmons could be like a lean offensive lineman for you there, a big, lean offensive lineman, 6'5", 317. That 4.91 speed is just jumping off the page to me from Membu. So give me him 3, Simmons 4. At 5, let's show some love to the FCS. I got Greg Zabel out of North Dakota State. This guy was getting a lot of hype leading up to the Combine. I feel like it's kind of quieted down since. But I still feel like this guy is good enough that we will see him off the board in the first round. Thinking somewhere from pick 24 to 27 is around the range we see him go. I'm not sure the team's around there, but that makes the most sense to me. I've got him at number 5 O-lineman.
I do as well, and I'm more worried about his rise now. Only because if we do go somewhere else at number 4 and not take Will, I would have hoped to grab this guy without a
Would have
doubt
loved to.
in
Yep,
the second, and I'm worried that his stock is rising and we won't get that opportunity. I love him though at 5.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, gonna fly through these next couple ones here quick. 6, 7, 8. This is where it drops off. I think after Zabel, you have a tier of like Campbell and Banks at the top. Then you've got your tier of Membo, Simmons, and Zabel, and then I think it's kind of just crapshoot for whoever you would want to throw in there to finish off those top 5 of the O linemen. And I've got the guy that was making some waves at the combine with his beautiful mullet and how he just looks like he could be a Hall of Fame offensive guard. That's going to be Tate Ratledge out of Georgia with that killer mullet here, man. I've got him 6'6", 308 offensive guard, ran a 4.97. Georgia produces some good offensive linemen there. I think he's going to be a solid floor prospect. While he might not have the highest ceiling out of all these guys, I think in terms of just instant help and who can fill a hole day one, I think he's going to be able to do that for an NFL team. I've got him as my 6. I've got Donovan Jackson, offensive tackle out of Ohio State, at my 7 here. 6'4", 315, 520, 40. I think he's just going to be a capable offensive lineman. Definitely not the best of the bunch of the tackles in this class. I guess it depends on where he ends up getting drafted, if he's going to end up playing the left tackle position or the right tackle position. I think he ends up getting drafted to a team to be a right, so it's not going to play to, like his ability at the start. But I think he is a guy that could turn into a solid left tackle for you. And I've got him at 7. And then last, or 8, not last, but as my number 8 prospect, I've got Wyatt Millham out of West Virginia, 6'6", 315 offensive tackle, earning a 5.27 40. Another guy like Tate, I think he's got a high floor. I don't know if he's got too much to grow outside of that, but I think he's just a solid piece for a team that's not really looking for a franchise, piece, your franchise cornerstone in your tackle, but I do think he's going to be a guy that is going to translate well to the league, so I've got him at 8.
Yeah, I think my only other choice is going to be at number 8. I agree with your picks there, but my 8, I'm going with the number 1 ranked center in Jake Majors, kid coming out of Texas. Just everything you want to do. Having to switch between Quinn and Arch, and be able to control. And at 6'3", 306, I love those measurables.
Yeah,
running a 5.
No, I like him. I was not able to find a way to include him in this top 10, but if we were to extend, I'll tell you, he was probably going to be number 11 for me. So to end, so you have Ratledge and Jackson as well then?
Yep.
In those same positions. Look at us, man. We are sniping some guys. All right, so Majors, and then for 8, 9, or 9, 10 to finish these out for me, I've got who I think is potentially the second best offensive guard that I have on my list. We have Ratledge up there as the number 1 guard. Number 2, give me Tyler Booker out of Alabama, 321, 6'5", 538, 40. 538, 40 does scare you a little bit, but these are some big guys. They run like that. I think he's just got phenomenal size to be able to be a plug-and-play guy at the NFL with, an immediate impact there. And at the end of the day, too, when in doubt, we know we can rely on majority of these Alabama offensive linemen to come out of there and be good NFL players. So I've got him at 9. And then number 10, I have the offensive tackle out of Oregon, Josh Connerly Jr., 6'5", 311, 505, 40. Should be pretty good, and I might be overreacting here because of the Senior Bowl stuff that came out about him. A lot of people are going to have him higher, maybe 5 through 7, 5 through 8 on their boards in terms of O-linemen, but just whenever I hear his name, I cannot forget about what happened at Senior Bowl practice when Mike Green out of Marshall just absolutely ran through him as a 6'5", 311, supposed to be top tackle in the country on an Oregon team that was number 1 this year. So I definitely think he's still in the top 10. I've got him 10 there, but that rounds out my list.
I got Booker there at 9, but I'm going to go with the offensive tackle out of Texas, Cameron Williams. Again, size, 6'6", 317, arm, 334 and a half. Huge hands, 11 and 3/8. Yes, the 40 was slower compared to the guy you just said, but no, I mean, this guy is huge.
This guy's, Williams is just massive. If it wasn't for, like I mentioned, Majors, probably have him at 11 as the best center. I would have Williams at 12 there, so I think we're pretty on line. But what this showed me, outside of, that first 2 tiers, like I mentioned earlier, that ends at Zabel, I like some of these guys in the second tier. I don't think there's a lot of drop-off. And in terms of the Patriots, if you don't get a guy like Zabel, like we're talking about, that might have rose into the end of the first round, there are some guys there that I'd be comfortable taking at the start of the second round that I do think can be a decent plug-and-play tackle for us. You just got to hit the right one to be able to really give us some safety at the left tackle there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be fine, but I would hope we either get Campbell or Zabel.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all that we've got for this episode then, guys. I know we didn't get too much in the Celtics, Sox, the Bruins, and all that, but it's March Madness week. You got to expect this. You know what we do? This is the second ever March Madness episode that we've had. We do a whole breakdown of the tournament because we are so excited for the games this week. I hope you are too. Make sure to get your brackets in. Make sure to get your brackets into our bracket group. Like I said earlier, the link is available on our Twitter. If you look it up, just search for A New Era 2025. The password is ANE25. So go ahead and get your bracket entries in there. The winner will be getting a New Era podcast sweatshirt if you end up beating our bracket. But outside of that, Dad, do you have anything else before I get us out of here?
No, just Christmas again. May all your bets win.
May all your bets win and make your brackets not get busted on the first game of Louisville and Creighton. Let's hope that we all make it through the first couple games on Thursday before our brackets start to bust. All right. Well, as always, if you would like to keep up with us on social media outside of these episodes, make sure to do so on Twitter and Instagram at A New Era Podcast, A New Era Podcast on Facebook. And if you'd like to email us any questions, concerns, or funny business, anewerapodcast@gmail.com. We appreciate you guys listening to this episode. Enjoy March Madness. Enjoy a great weekend ahead of us at sports. And we will catch you next week for episode 64 now. I know.
Love you, son.
Love you, Dad.